Alright, what's going on everyone? We have a new Explorer Anthology. This is the second one, releases December 13th, and today I want to go over all the cards and tell you if I think this is worth your money. This thing costs 4,000 gems or 25,000 gold, so you can buy it if you're free to play if you have a ton of gold, but is it worth that? Because that's like 25 bucks or whatever. So let's look at this. Something we'll be focusing on is the rarity of cards, because if a card's really good but it's common, you can just craft it, right? So we need to get value in the rares and mythics for this to be really worth the money. And so far it seems pretty good. Let's just start looking at it. First off, everyone gets waste. You don't have to buy this. This will just be on your account. So not really what we're focusing on, but that's nice. So here we are. So this first batch doesn't look great at first. It gets better. Trust me, there's some really good stuff in this. But this first batch, in terms of rares, we get Eldrazi, Displacer, Eerie Interlude, and Soldier of the Pantheon. Of these three rares, I would say Soldier of the Pantheon is the only one that's in a top tier deck. Eldrazi Displacer is like fringe playable. It's a 3-mana 3/3. It can exile stuff and then return it to the battlefield. So you can either blink blockers and they enter tapped so you can attack, or you can blink your own stuff if you have entered the battlefield effect. So it's played in like it used to be played in Eldrazi and Taxes and Modern, and it can be played in Blink decks with like Soul Hoarder and Modern and stuff. It's not a bad card, just not really played right now. Eerie Interlude, same thing, played in the same type of deck. It can exile any number of creatures you control, then return them to the battlefield immediately. So this is played in Blink decks that are looking to intentionally blink their own boards to re-trigger enter the battlefield effects. So both of these cards kind of go together, and they're both alright, just not played in tier 1 decks. Brave the Elements is a staple in white aggro decks. It's just a protection spell, 1 mana, choose a color, and then white creatures you control, that's all white creatures you control, gain protection from that color until end of turn. So this is played in like human aggro decks, white aggro decks. So yeah, this is commonly played, but it is just an uncommon, so it should be pretty easy to craft. Don't need to buy this. I don't know about you guys, but I have like 300 each of common and uncommon wild cards, so stuff like this is pretty easy to craft. So far, these are the rares, not tier 1 cards. Cool, but not tier 1 cards. And this is like a definite must-have, very cool card that you can craft pretty easily. So Soldier of the Pantheon, this is played in Orzhov Humans decks and Pioneer. It's 1 mana 2/1, so it's an aggro human. Has protection from multicolored. Very good because in Pioneer there's a lot of multicolored stuff, so it's played a lot. It also, whenever the opponent plays a multicolored spell, you gain a life, and it's frequently played specifically in Orzhov Humans. Ethereal Armor is also awesome. It's a 1 mana aura. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control, and it has first strike. So this is played in like in the past, it's been played in Bogles and Modern, any deck that's trying to load up a creature with a bunch of auras, or enchantment-based decks, but it is common, so it should be pretty easy to craft again. Next, we have Blue. Once again, this has been very it'll change, I promise, but this is consistent. Once again, we have a mythic, not really played in anything, and we have an exceptionally good blue spell that's a common. So Clever Impersonator, it can enter as a copy of any non-land permanent on the battlefield. Kind of fun, but not being played in any tier 1 decks at the moment. It occasionally sees play in like the 4-color Invention decks sometimes, but that's pretty rare. And Dispel is counter target instant. Blue control decks will sometimes play a single copy main board, but usually this is a sideboard piece. You bring it in against other control decks and you have a 1 mana instant counter spell. It's pretty good in sideboards, but once again, very easy to craft. Black only gets 1 card. It's a pretty cool one, not being played in any tier 1 decks right now, but 2 mana 1/1. Whenever another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1, you gain 1. So really good in sacrifice decks, in aristocrats decks, stuff like that. Not being played in many tier 1 decks, and it is just an uncommon, so you can just craft this, but pretty cool, not 100% necessary. So far, I would say, if I'm rating this as it is, looks pretty bad. People are going to click away from this video thinking, oh, it's not very good, is it? It's about to change, because things get crazy right about here. And going forward with the rest of this is where all the good stuff is. First off, Eidolon of Great Revel. This completely changes mono red aggro. I made a video recently where Monastery Swift Spear was printed, and I'm like, yeah, this changes red aggro entirely. We can focus on burn now, And now that deck's finished, because now we get Eidolon. This is a staple red creature in basically all burn decks ever, from Pioneer to Modern to Legacy. Very good card. 2 mana 2/2, starts burning people. It burns you too, but that's fine, because you don't care about your own life total when you're a burn deck. Your life total can drain just so long as the opponent's drains faster, so very good card. This is like a must-have if you are a red aggro player. Fiery Impulse, also a staple card in like Phoenix decks and stuff. 1 mana deals 2 damage, but if you have 2 or more instants and sorceries, it deals 3 damage instead. Only can target a creature, but very frequently played in like Jeskai Control and Phoenix decks. Rending Volley, very common sideboard staple for red decks. Can't be countered, deals 4 damage to a white or blue creature. Probably not going to play that main board, not a best of 1 card, but definitely sideboard playable for like red aggro decks and stuff. Even control decks like it. So all of these are great. Only one of them is rare, but all 3 cards awesome. Green is also pretty crazy. Coercive Crewfix, it's not always played. I would say like right now it's not being played too much, but it's very common in like land focused decks. It's a 3 mana 2/4. You play with your top card revealed. You can play lands from the top of your library, and then whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. So very common in green ramp decks, because it's a 3 mana 4 toughness creature, so it blocks well, and the idea is to stall out until you have 1,000,000 mana. So it's common in like Nissa ramp decks and stuff, so pretty cool. Satyr Wayfinder is a tier 1 card in Abzan Greasefang. It's basically like Stitcher Supplier in that deck. When it enters, you reveal the top 4 cards. You can put a land from them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. So you look at the top 4, you put a land in your hand, and then you hope to put a Parhelion in the graveyard. And this is common in a lot of like graveyard-based green decks, you know, like Jund, Reanimator type of stuff. Any kind of Reanimator deck, typically like Satyr Wayfinder, but it is common, so once again, easy to craft. Then we have Worldbreaker. This is very commonly played in green ramp decks again. 7 mana, 5/7, does a bunch of stuff. When it enters, it blows stuff up. You can sacrifice lands to return it to your hand. You often see like 1 or 2 copies in like green ramp decks and stuff, so that's nice to have. It is mythic. And Nylea's Presence, it doesn't seem that impressive. 2 mana, enters, draws a card, and then the land can tap for any color mana. This is very popular in Enchantress decks because it's an enchantment that enters the battlefield and then just draws a card, redraws, right? So green and red looking pretty good. Multicolor, we get Reflector Mage. This is often played in human decks. Human decks will literally splash blue just for this. It's a 3 mana 2/3. When it enters the battlefield, you return a creature an opponent controls to their hand, and then they can't cast that the following turn, right? So not only is this a great tempo play, it bounces something, but they can't recast it for a full turn cycle. All the human decks that splash blue are usually splashing for this, so that's going to be a viable option now if you're a humans player. Sliver Hive Lord is... why? I don't know why this is here. I don't get this. This feels like a historic card. Yeah, this is one of our mythics, and no, don't need it. Shaman of the Pack, though, this is huge for elves. This is a huge game finisher for elves. When it enters, target opponent loses life equal to the number of elves you control. And guess what elves do? They go wide. So this, it's a game finisher for elves. It is devastating when they can hit it off of a collected company. Like if they can play a collected company, hit 2 of these, you're probably dead, right? So Shaman of the Pack is a devastating finisher for elves. And I think this basically finishes elves on Explorer. I think Explorer Elves now is card for card identical to the Elves deck in Pioneer. And I think that's true for a lot of decks. This finishes or comes close to finishing the blue humans decks. This makes Abzan Greasefang, I think, perfect. I think it's exactly perfect with this. There's a lot of Pioneer decks that are getting finished in Explorer because of this. And this is where things get really sad for me. So first off, Kozilek is whatever. See, Thought Nasir and Matter Reshaper, I am a huge fan of Eldrazi. I love Matter Reshaper, Thought Nasir, but there's 2 more cards that are very important here. That is Reality Smasher and Eldrazi Temple, and we don't get those. Reality Smasher's not already on the client, is it? Maybe it is, but it doesn't matter because none of them are good without Eldrazi Temple. Without Eldrazi Temple, they're just kind of whatever. Maybe Thought-Knot Seer is okay even without Eldrazi Temple. I don't think so, though. So, it's like, you gave us 2 out of 4 pieces, and we don't have the rest. The good news is, you don't have to be upset about that, because, well, these aren't Tier 1 decks anyway. They're not Tier 1 cards. Eldrazi hasn't been playable competitively for a few years. It used to be a Tier 1 deck in Modern, ban Eldrazi, but hasn't been super top tier in a while. It's a pet deck for me. I love Eldrazi, and we don't get the full package, so it's just like, disappointing. But there's good news, really good news if you haven't seen this, because holy crap, the lands, we get Mutavault and Nykthos. Holy crap. So Mutavault played in a lot of tribal monocolor decks, because it does tap for colorless. It's a little scary to be playing this in like a 3-color deck, but 1 mana, just 1 mana, animates into a 2/2, and it is all creature types, so it's played in a lot of like mono white humans. If you're playing like mono black zombies, you're probably playing this, because it animates for 1, and it's going to get pumped by your lords. So very commonly played in like all formats ever, so this is awesome, going to be played a lot, I expect. And then Nykthos is very important for green devotion decks, or any devotion deck. It taps for colorless, but you can pay to tap it, choose a color, and then add an amount of mana of that color equal to your devotion to that color. So this is very common in green devotion. So we get this for green devotion. We get, Nihilia's Presence sometimes played, World Breaker sometimes played. And I think that basically finishes, or comes very close to finishing, green devotion decks. Because, you have Nissa, you have Cavalier of Thorns, you have all the other stuff. You just didn't have Nykthos, the most important key piece of the deck. So definitely expect mono green decks to just absolutely explode in power after this release, because Nykthos will make mono green super common. So what do I think of this? First off, let's go through the rares, because obviously it's very easy to craft the commons and uncommons. So you don't need these, they're cool, don't need them. Soldier of Pantheon, very good for Orzhov humans, not always played. It's like a 50-50 card. I didn't even add it to my Pioneer Challenger deck upgrade, because it's like half played. So I would say, yeah, it's nice to have at least. So that's not bad. Clever Impersonators, whatever. Eidolon, staple red card. This is very, very good. Courser's cool, not 100% necessary, but World Breaker is great for the green ramp decks. So that's nice. Useless. All of these are useless right now because they didn't give us the full package of Eldrazi Temple and stuff. And then the lands are great. So you're looking at, if we're going to count them, we have 1, 2, let's say 3, 4, 5 cards, I would say, are like absolutely awesome to have, like staple cards that you're definitely going to use if you play those decks. And then in terms of really good playable commons and uncommons, you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So most of the good cards are common and uncommon in this pack. They're great. This pack, even if you don't buy it, is going to be amazing for Explorer. We have so many good cards, but so many of them are common and uncommon that you don't have to rush out and buy this. You can just craft these, right? Pretty easy to craft all this stuff. So I think the pack is good. I think if they had included Reality Smasher and Eldrazi Temple, this would be like a smash hit home run for Eldrazi players. But without that, they're just kind of dead rares, taking up space for no reason. So I would say, in terms of improving Explorer, I think this pack is amazing. There are so many really good cards. But in terms of, should you spend, 25,000 gold or 4,000 gems? It really depends on these niche specific cards and whether or not you really need those. Because all the rares and mythics are they're good, but they're not like Courser is good, but not tier 1. Both these cards are really fun, but not played in tier 1 decks. I love these two Eldrazi, but we don't have the whole thing. So there's lots of good stuff here, but in terms of necessary stuff, we get 2 lands. These are amazing. And then we get some I would say 3 must-have cards. And then some pretty cool stuff. But so I give this pack in terms of improving Explorer, like a 10 out of 10, honestly. It actually legitimately finishes a lot of decks. This really pushes the format very close to Pioneer, which is super cool. But in terms of like, is it worth it to buy it? It's more like a 5 out of 10. I'd say this is worth getting excited over, but not 100% necessary to buy for everyone. So that's it. That's hopefully that gives you a rough idea what you're getting. Hopefully that was useful. I don't know. I kind of just rambled a whole lot, but hopefully that was useful. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.